exactly.
Money or something. Yeah, it really is. It's 6:30.
Okay, this meeting of the board is now called to order. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome. Thank you for being here this evening. Unfortunately, Trustee Larson and Overia send their regrets. We need to approve our agenda on page 2. Is there a motion, please?
Mr. President, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion passes, and we'll move forward with our agenda as printed. And our first stop is the Superintendent's Report.
Right, and the only thing we have on there this evening is the bond project update. So Johnny Edwards is here to present that.
Thank you. Good evening, Superintendent Beelang, as well as members of the Portage Board of Education. Just wanted to give the board a heads up that we're working on some security upgrades for our summer work. The board has seen a first pass at some of the upgrades, but we're looking, we just went out to bid for secure vestibules and other security enhancements at Central High School, Northern High School, West Middle School. We plan to bring a recommendation to the board at the April meeting. Also, we're also finalizing plans to go out for bids for PA clocks and bells upgrades at Central High, Northern High, 12th Street, and Lake Center. These are also some of the security enhancements that are planned for this summer. Over to our construction updates at Central Elementary School. The second floor is almost completely laid. The second floor area is on the north side of the building. The masons have completed the north side of the building, and we'll be moving to the northeast side of the building. And then there are also window blocking as well. On the first level at Central Elementary School, they are installing the radiant floor. That's ongoing. Concrete is being poured in the gymnasium area, and also concrete is being poured on top of the areas in which the radiant floor has been installed. And then they'll be working on the exterior brick in the coming week. Next week, they'll begin laying out the studs for the wall with the intent to start framing. And the following week, they'll include more structural steel. So Central L's work is ongoing. Haverhill, which again is just staggered by 30 to 45 days or so, they've completed all the brick on the first floor. And now they're also window blocking those areas. And now that the crane is on site, they've now started to begin the work for laying the second floor at Haverhill. Then lastly, just moving over to Woodland, we held our 5th schematic design meeting last Friday. This meeting was considered what they call a page turn, in which we're near the completion of our schematic design. This week we're working with Tower, Pinkstrom Fielding International, but they'll incorporate the changes that we discussed at last week's meeting based on the feedback from our team. So that concludes our construction update for our upcoming projects, our current projects, as well as what we're doing. I'll be happy to answer any questions from the board.
Johnny, when do you think we'll see the schematics for Woodland?
So that's a good question. We are working with Tower and OAK. We want to make sure that our design fits within the allocated budget. As you know, in the past, we've had to do some value engineering. So we're hoping that we'll be able to give you an update in terms of that schematic layout before the end of this school year. We also want to share our most up-to-date schematic design with our staff as well, so they can kind of give us somewhat of a thumbs up. So the things that they've seen so far, the renderings that they've seen, they've been well pleased with that. So again, back to your question, we want to do an update of the schematic design before the school year ends.
Super. Looking forward to it. Thanks.
I am too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to our comments and communications section. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board this evening? And I've just been notified there is not, so we'll move to comments by board trustees. Does anyone have anything this evening?
Well, Mr. President, I actually have a few things.
Go.
So during a visit to Haverhill a few weeks ago, I stumbled into a lot of kids being fitted for new shoes. And asked, hey, right, yeah, hey, what's going on here? And so a shout out to the good people at the First Day Shoe Fund and Maggie Hesketh, their executive director. That organization was founded in 2006 and now provides quality name brand athletic shoes to students in 47 public elementary schools in Kalamazoo County whose families might need a little extra help. Last fall, they distributed 5,500 pairs of shoes and almost 1,000 of them to Portage students. And they have a staff of 1.5, but they operate with the help of a lot of volunteers. So if you want to volunteer and make a donation, you can find the First Day Shoe Fund on the web or at Facebook. And it was just really cool watching a lot of kids getting fitted for really great new shoes. That's the first thing. The second thing is, was anybody else going to talk about Community and Read? All right, I'll take that. We've been talking about it, but it's coming up. March 19 at 6:30 is the public event. The book is Salt to the Sea, and I'm thinking we're probably rounding up to at least half of the trustees have read it now. The author, Ruta Cepetis, will be in town to talk about it. It'll be held at the Zhang Portage Senior Center, and look forward to that event. And then finally, Mrs. Higgison, a fifth grade teacher at 12th Street Elementary, invited me to read to her class last Friday. It was a highlight. And I read and then took some questions. And so, what's it like explaining what a school board does to fifth graders? And so we quickly got focused on the issue of building new elementary schools. And they had a lot of questions about how the old schools were going to get demolished. And so there could be lines of fifth graders from other schools showing up when the wrecking ball or however we do that. But they were really fixated on that aspect of the project. And it was great fun.
Well, I appreciate hearing that because I'm going to be reading for Mrs. Higgison on Wednesday.
I figured.
Right. Thank you. Right.
Yes, we can trade notes to keep our stories straight.
Right. Does anyone else have anything? Well, speaking of the Higgisons, I just wanted to congratulate Coach Higgison and the Portage Central men's varsity basketball team. They had a record 21 wins this season, the district title, and the SMAC championship. So congratulations to everybody on that team and Coach Higgison. I want to remind trustees we have our final 2 tours at Amberley this Wednesday at 8:25 and at Lake Center on Monday the 18th at 10 o'clock. And then I want to acknowledge Vice President Snyder's accomplishment for reaching level 2, the Award of Merit, with MASB. Congratulations.
Thanks, Randy.
You bet.
I got my letter the other day, yeah.
Yeah, very good, very good. Okay, we'll move on to our consent agenda, and we have a number of items this evening. First, approval of the minutes from the February 26, 2024 regular business meeting and the March 6, 2024 special meeting in closed session, which includes a copy of the consent judgment filed with the Ninth Circuit Court in the matter of Coffrin versus Portage Public Schools. Our next item is to approve the Central High and Northern High student trip to Ireland scheduled for July 13 through 31, 2025, as presented. The next item is to approve the contract for the North Middle School outdoor basketball court remodel from Hall Builders of Paw Paw, Michigan for a total of $55,000, which includes a 10% contingency, funding to come from the 2019 bond contingency funds. Next is to approve the contract for the 12th Street Elementary shingle roof replacement from Leicester Contracting Incorporated of Kalamazoo, Michigan, for a total of $243,900, which includes a 10% contingency, funding to come from the Building Site Sinking Fund. Next is pending approval from the Michigan Department of Education. The Board of Education approves the contract for the West Middle School survey remodel from Hall Builders of Paw Paw, Michigan, for a total of $272,800, which includes a 10% contingency. Funding to come from the lunch fund excess fund balance spend down plan. And finally, to approve the contract for district-wide access control upgrades to Beist Electric of Byron Center, Michigan, in the amount of $104,572,000, which includes a 10% contingency. Funding to come from carryover Section 97 of the Safety and Security Funding. All these items were reviewed as our last meeting, and with that, are there any exceptions to this consent agenda? Hearing none, the consent agenda is approved. Thank you. And now we'll move to page 45, which is assurance of district performance. And we're going to be discussing monitoring report 1.2. Is there a motion, please, on page 45?
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education accept monitoring report 1.2 ends as a reasonable interpretation and evidence of compliance with policy.
Thank you, Ian. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Keith. Mark?
Policy 1.2 is about students acquiring 21st century learning skills, which we've interpreted to be critical thinking, communications, collaboration, and creativity. You have the interpretation there before you on what each of those terms are. The report is updated with the latest years of information. We don't have goals set within each one of these. This is more or less for us to kind of track our students' course selection at the secondary level, to take a look at the trends for enrollment in advanced placement classes, in our IB programs, and in our elective offerings. And there's no remarkable changes in what we've seen over the years, so those numbers are steady. It'll be interesting to see how they change once the Career Connect Center is open at the CTE Center through KRESA. I'm imagining we'll see an uptick in participation in that, so we'll have to amend how we look at this if appropriate. We also list there the number of co-curricular and extracurricular activities. As you know, we have a wide variety of activities for students across all grades, especially at the secondary level. A lot of what we do is based on the interest of our students, and we try to provide that for them as we find sponsors and advisors. Our student experience survey that we administer gives us a little bit of sense on several of the questions that we ask them about their enjoyment of some of our elective classes, knowing where to go when they need help, setting goals and tracking progress, being challenged by their teachers to think, and opportunities to be successful, which all tie into the skills that I mentioned earlier. So the numbers there have been continued to be solid responses. There's not a lot of deviation if you look at those over time. So we're hitting those pretty close to where we'd like them to be. And then lastly, there are some statements there on some of our staff development activities, especially around Project Lead the Way in our STEM professional learning. So that's the report, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Mark, I would just say, this is an ends that statement that kind of hard to measure some of this stuff, but yeah, you've got some really good data in here, so it's, I would look forward to this report. And I think the general takeaway is that things are bouncing back from the pandemic kind of slide. And so quite a few of these things are kind of looking more like pre-pandemic, than they have the last couple of years, and that's a really good, that's a good trend, especially some of these engagement survey scores. Opportunities to be successful and doing art, music, PE, those are back to where they were, and the others are coming up too. So there was one, not to put you on the spot, okay. But the students who earned an IB diploma was down last year, and it's Is there some specific reason that's driving that, or is that just one of those, some years it just varies?
The numbers do vary, but we have noticed some students, avoiding getting into the IB diploma program. It's a very challenging program. We don't really know exactly why. Oftentimes, students have to be in a course of studies at the earlier grades to position themselves for that, and I don't know if the virtual years that we were in contributed to that. So I know that the counselors and the administration at the buildings are, as well as the teachers, are working hard to get kids into that program, to see the value of that, and so we'll just keep monitoring that information. But
And that very well could be a pandemic hangover effect that just took a few years, because those kids who graduated last year would have been making some decisions about that 8th, 9th grade.
Right.
So, thank you.
Any other questions for Mark? Mark, thanks for the report. Good report, good data, appreciate it. Let's take this to action. All those in favor of approving monitoring report 1.2, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? And monitoring report 1.2 is approved. Thank you. And we'll now move to our discussion items this evening, which is a number of policy changes. First reading for those policy changes. First of all, our board member ethics policy and some operational policy revisions as well. These are policies that we've been looking at as a board for several months now, and this is the final version of those policies that we're recommending. Board member ethics, number I is a change, and that's to render all decisions based on the available facts, independent judgment, and alignment with board governance policies and bylaws. And that was the major change to number I. Then we've added 3 new components to our board member ethics policy. Q specifies the board's role in collective bargaining. The second one refers to board process during public comment. And finally, the last one, S, is to make an informed decision and let the superintendent or the board president know if you needed additional information if you're unsure about supporting a matter before the board. And of course, the purpose for that is to avoid surprises at the board table. Any questions, any concerns about this one? We've discussed it numerous times. And finally, our bylaw 167.3, public participation at board meetings. We changed the preamble to read, the Board of Education meetings are held for the purpose of conducting the business of the school district. The board recognizes the importance of letting the public express themselves on district matters and welcomes community input at our board meetings. The other changes is that we will acknowledge and thank each speaker, which is something we've always done, but this is now in writing. And we also ask that speakers should present comments in a respectful and courteous manner rather than a professional manner. And finally, we put a line in here that has to do with our obligation as a board to provide due process for both students and employees if those issues come up during public comment at our board meetings. And then I'll let Mark take this next one. It's our selection of instructional materials and equipment policy number 2521.
Sure. This policy, 2521, and the following one, 9130, are work together in this particular case. We took some elements that were previously addressed in policy 9130, which were around matters regarding educational programs, instructional materials, library materials, media center materials, and equipment, and put those processes into 2521. So we took them out of 9130, put them in 2521, where we have some very elaborate processes for for dealing with the selection of those materials as well as any concerns that may arise out of that. So those are the changes to that policy. And then in 9130, the key points on this policy, and I won't read the specific language, we've discussed this, but we've identified what the formal steps are as well as the informal steps of the complaint process. We spent some time with the board in clarifying what the board's role is in the complaint process. We cleaned up some redundant language, and then a lot of the strikeouts in that policy, or almost all the strikeouts in that policy, are as a result of moving those sections over into policy 2521, where it seems to make the most sense. Well, that's really all I have to say on that one, if you have questions.
Yeah, all I wanted to add is that the board is the last step in this public complaint process, and with this change, we've limited our review to making sure the appropriate policies and processes were used during the public complaint steps. And, yeah, does anybody have any comments on this at all?
Well, that, I think it's good to clarify that the board is the last step in the process, and in the movies, sometimes the boards are the first steps, but that's in the movies, and we have legal constraints and requirements that we have to live with, or we will face a lawsuit that we will lose. So, yes, we are the last step in due process and not the first step.
And also the clarification reinforcement that that last step is just limited to process and procedure.
Very true, thank you for that.
Randy, I would add to, my thanks, my colleagues for entertaining those, the tweaks to the public participation board meetings and kind of our, how we phrase some things. I think some of our phrasing historically could be interpreted several ways, and in one way was a less than fully inviting way. So I think we've cleaned that up and trying to create a more inviting atmosphere for public comment.
Good. Okay, any other comments on any of the policy changes? Okay, hearing none, we'll move to our last action item here, and that is to go into closed session to discuss collective bargaining strategy. There's a motion on page 66, please.
Mr. President, I make the motion that the Board of Education move into closed session to discuss collective bargaining strategy as allowed under the Open Meetings Act, 15.268, Section 8C.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, Barb, is a roll call vote?
Mr. Kroll.
Yes.
Mrs. Crawford.
Yes.
Mr. Van Antwerp.
Yes.
Mr. Snyder.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
The motion passes, and we're going to go into closed session, and we have no intent to go back into open session after that, so you're free to go. Enjoy the evening.
Yeah,
Is this a record?
I think it is.
Close.
I think it's a.
We'll see how
The closed session.
can't count this.